So one of the fun things we did with the Druid is we tried to have different tiers based on different themes of being a Druid. Level 15 is all themed about being a cat. Doesn't mean that only the feral cat spec is interested in these, it means that they're just kind of themed that way. Feline Swiftness is the movement ability we have now. Displacer Beast is a really fun ability that lets you kind of move in a random direction and get out of any kind of dots that are on you at the time. And then Tireless Pursuit is basically a second dash. So if you want to be the really mobile guy getting around the battlefield, you can do Tireless Pursuit. You'll see a lot of the Druid abilities will say something like, this ability activates X. So rather than having to jump to Cat and then hit Displacer Beast, if you're a Moonkin and you hit Displacer Beast, you'll go into Cat as part of that. Okay, level 30 is kind of a healing tier. You know, rest of Druids are going to care a lot about this, but because the Druid's a hybrid class, we wanted the other specs to feel like they could do a little bit of healing as well, even if it's something they're using on themselves. So Nature Swiftness is your next spell is instant. It's pretty similar to what we have today. Renewal is a big heal that you can do on yourself. And then Cenarian Ward, you designate a target and put a shield on them, and then they'll get healed when the shield gets broken. Okay, Tier 45 is, has some crowd control in here. Fairies Swarm is one of those spells that replaces Fairy Fire, but in this case it's also more powerful than Fairy Fire because it does the snare as well. Mass Entanglement's exactly what it sounds like. Root everything. And then we thought it'd be a lot of fun to put Typhoon in here, so if you want to be the bear with Typhoon, here's your chance. Level 60 is a pretty cool tier. What we did in this case is we said, let's take something cool that different talent trees have and make it available to everyone. So Wild Charge is a new version of Feral Charge. If you take this talent, you get a lot of different movement abilities, one for every different form you can go into. So if you're Bear, you get the Bear Charge. If you're Moonkin, you get the Moonkin Charge. The way Incarnation works is, depending on your spec, it activates a super powerful version of your spec. So if you like Tree of Life, this is where you get Tree of Life. If you want to say, you know, I would like to be a cat that kind of turns into the super powered cat version, you can also pick this talent. There's super boomkin and everything in here. And then finally, Force of Nature. It's not just the 3 treants you know and love today, but the 3 treants do different things depending on your spec. We didn't want to have the gigantic tooltip here. It works a little bit like the Guardian of Ancient Kings, where there's a variant depending on each of the 4 Druid specs. Remember, there's 4 Druid specs now. All right. Obviously a bear theme. Demoralizing Shout and Demoralizing Roar was one of those abilities that we weren't sure the game really needed anymore. They were kind of just maintenance-y. The debuff wasn't that interesting. We thought, let's just get rid of them and focus the tank debuffs around the more interesting Thunderclap and Sunder and things like that. So this is not the Demoralizing Roar you have today. This Demoralizing Roar is actually CC and does a group disorient. Ursol's Vortex, it can be used in any shapeshift form, but it's bear themed and it pulls all the enemies to you in wind. And then Bear Hug is a really interesting kind of stun where you're a bear, you've grabbed the bad guy, they're stunned, but you have to sit there and keep stunning them. And if you walk away, they're gonna break out. All right. Level 90, I mentioned before, we really wanted the kit to remind players the kit of the Druid is you can do lots of different things. That was always what the Druid is originally about. We've moved a little bit away from that by letting players specialize so much into, you know, I'm a cat, all I care about is cat stuff. I'm not going to pay attention to anything else. So level 90, we give you a choice of how you want to be a shapeshifter. There's a lot of different things here. Heart of the Wild feels really powerful. It's the one that says, you know, even though I'm a balanced Druid, I still want to be a fairly good healer. I'm not as good a healer as a Resto Druid, but I'm willing to give up a talent point and be a pretty good healer. Same thing is true of Feral. This Feral, the Feral spec, if you pick Heart of the Wild, gives you the ability to have better armor in bear form and have a little higher intellect, but you're not going to be as powerful as a Druid who picks that spec. So that's, Heart of the Wild is more about focusing on that form. Master Shapeshifter has to do with the actual act of shifting itself. So every time you shift, you increase your damage. and attack power, which stacks up. So if you shift multiple times, you can build up this buff on yourself. And then disentanglement, when you shapeshift, it removes roots and does a heal. And there's the full Druid tree.